Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly has done a lot of good things with the Fighting Irish program, especially when you look at it to where it was before he was hired. Notre Dame has had several 10-win seasons, whereas they just had two in the 15 years before he was hired. You look at the last four seasons since the post-2016 makeover, and Notre Dame has won at least 10 games every season. Their down year was a 10-3 year in 2017, which was year one of the makeover, and they went 10-3 against a schedule that contained 8 opponents that finished the year ranked in the top 25. If you look at the success that has driven all but one of those seasons, it's been with the defense, 2015 being the only exception. And of course, that year, Notre Dame lost to every single Power 5 opponent that it played that was ranked, and its only win over a ranked opponent was against Navy. So it's really been the defense that has fueled the success at Notre Dame. 2012, that was about the defense. 2018, that was about the defense. 2020, playoff run, that was about the defense. Let's not forget, Notre Dame beat Louisville 12-7. That was about the defense. So in the last 4 years especially, there's been a level of consistency on defense that you need to really have a championship caliber unit. When Notre Dame has played the best teams on the schedule, the defense has given them a chance to win those games. The defense gave them a chance to win both games against Georgia. The defense gave them a chance to beat Clemson in the 2018 playoff. It gave them a chance to beat Clemson this year in the college football or in the ACC championship game. Was the defense brilliant in those games? No, but when you hold a team like Clemson or Alabama into the 30s, the way that college football has been the last 5 years, that gives you a chance to win. What has held Notre Dame back from really taking that next leap as a program and jumping into that upper echelon of not just a team that makes a playoff berth, but a team that can actually get into these games and be competitive and win some of these games has been the offense. Notre Dame's been a relatively mediocre offense for most of Brian Kelly's tenure. And if you look at the last 3 seasons, as good as things have gone for Notre Dame, the offense has fallen behind and they don't play well in the big games. In those 3 seasons, Notre Dame has played 11 games against ranked opponents. And this is opponents that finished the season ranked. And they've averaged just 18.7 points in those games. In 5 games against opponents that finished ranked in the top 10, the offense averaged just 14 points per game. And that's in regulation. If you add the double overtime game against Clemson, that's 16.8 points per game. Those are very unimpressive numbers, and they're the primary reason Notre Dame has not taken that final step. As far as Brian Kelly has brought the program, they still don't seem close to getting over that final hurdle. In the last 2 seasons, for example, Notre Dame has gone 3-4 against opponents that finished the season ranked in the top 25, and they're just 2-4 against opponents that finished ranked in the top 25 that are Power 5 teams, because in 2019, their only win over a ranked opponent was Navy. Now, there's been a lot of reasons why the offense, or a lot of excuses as to why the offense has not played to its potential or played to the level of defense. And one of them has been a lack of talent, especially a lack of skill talent. Now, to me, I don't accept that argument. I think that Notre Dame's had plenty of talent to be a lot better than it is. It's not be Alabama talent level or only score 33 points a game. There's a lot of in between, and that's where Notre Dame needs to get to. Because with the defense they have, Notre Dame doesn't have to be a 49-point-per-game team like LSU and Alabama have been the last couple seasons. But when you look moving forward, there are no more excuses for Notre Dame when it comes to putting a dynamic elite offense on the field, because recruiting has been the justification that some have used as to why Notre Dame hasn't played at that level. But if you look at the last couple seasons worth of recruiting, you can't use that anymore, because Notre Dame in many ways has recruited just as good as a lot of the top programs. So what I'm going to show you here is a chart that takes the 24/7 Sports composite ranking. Okay, so that takes into account all the different services and kicks out what a player's ranking is. Okay, and this is essentially the ranking of how many players that finished in the top in the top 250 of the 247 Sports composite ranking. So you see here, Notre Dame is tied for 5th with Oregon with 14. They're only 1 behind Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia, and only 2 behind Alabama. Now, those programs have signed more top 100 players. But if you look here, there's a level of balance here at Notre Dame. They're not just loading up on offensive linemen. And they've actually done some very impressive things in recent seasons. For example, Notre Dame is one of just 2 programs in the last 2 cycles that have signed at least 2 top 250 recruits at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line, the other being Oregon. In the last 2 cycles, there's only been 4 teams that have signed at least 1 top 100 quarterback, 1 top 100 running back, 1 top 100 receiver, 1 top 100 tight end, and 1 top 100 offensive lineman. Those 4 teams are Notre Dame, Clemson, Georgia, and LSU. That's it. That's the list. So as these numbers clearly show, Notre Dame is recruiting to the level in recent seasons on offense that it needs to. And in fact, for several years, Notre Dame has recruited better on offense than they have on defense, just from a pure recruiting ranking standpoint. So the talent is clearly here. When you look at the 2021 schedule, Notre Dame plays 3 teams that finished this past season ranked in the top 40 in scoring defense. That's Cincinnati, Toledo, and Wisconsin. So again, the schedule is conducive to seeing a big jump in offensive production. So the talent is there and it's coming in. And when you look at those top 100 rankings, a lot of the top players that Notre Dame signed were in the 2020 class, which means they are going to be sophomores next year. So Notre Dame's top 100 running back, their top 100 wide receiver, their top 100 tight end, and one of their top 100 offensive linemen were all in the 2020 class, which means they're rising sophomores. That would be Chris Tyree, Jordan Johnson, Michael Mayer, and Tosh Baker. So talent is there. The opportunity is there. The schedule in 2021 is conducive to seeing a jump in offense. Now it's time for Notre Dame to make that leap, because when you have Kevin Austin coming back, who was a top 100 recruit, Braden Lindsey, Lawrence Keys, these are the veterans that we're not talking about. There's going to be plenty of talent at Notre Dame. Kyron Williams returns. There's going to be plenty of talent at Notre Dame. So it's now time for the Notre Dame offense, the Notre Dame coaches, to do what they have to do to take that next step, because you can't blame it on recruiting anymore. You can't blame it on a lack of skill players anymore. You can't blame it on a lack of talent anymore. No, they're not at the level of Ohio State or Alabama or even Georgia, but that's a different story when it comes to a recruiting standpoint. But if you look at Notre Dame's numbers, they do compare very well to Clemson. I'm going to pull this up one more time. You look, Notre Dame signed 6 top 100 players, skill players in the last 2 cycles compared to just 8 for Clemson. That's just 2 different players. Clemson has signed 1 top 250 quarterback the last 2 years. Notre Dame has signed 2. So again, talent is there, skill is there, schedule sets up right. It's time for Notre Dame to take that next leap and become one of the best 5 to 8 offenses in the country. That means 40-plus points per game. That means being able to score in the high 20s and 30s against the better teams on the schedule and start being more competitive and then winning some of these big games. The talent's there. The opportunity is there. Now it's time to get it done, and there's really no more excuses. So that'll be it for this little segment. Going to have more on this coming up. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave comments, suggestions for future shows down there. Make sure you hit the notifications button too, so that way when we do put up a video, and we've been putting up a lot of videos lately, that you're made aware of it right away. Make sure you're also, we would appreciate you subscribing to our podcast and checking out our website at irishbreakdown.com. So we'll be back with you again very, very soon.